Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. It's 2 p.m. here in New York. Welcome to the Banyan Impact Fellowship for Service in India information session. We are delighted to have you with us today. My name is Hari, and I serve as Program Manager at American India Foundation. I also have with me our 2024 BIF alum, Michael. Currently, Michael is in the UK. Michael is working at the intersection of climate action and community led development. Welcome, Michael. In a short while, we will hear more about Michael's fellowship experience. The information session will begin with a brief 10-minute presentation covering the fellowship program and the application process. After that, our fellowship alumnus, Michael, will share insights from his fellowship experience. We'll wrap the session with a question and answer session. I encourage everyone on the call to drop their questions in the comment section, and we'll address them towards the end of the session. Banyan Impact Fellowship is American India Foundation's oldest program. It started in 2001 and was formerly known as William J. Clinton Fellowship for Service in India. AIF is committed to improving the lives of underprivileged, especially women, children, and youth. The Banyan Impact Fellowship is a binational volunteer service program in the US India corridor, with the mission to build a lasting bridge between the United States and India. The fellows, part of the first cohort, worked on disaster relief, but over the past 25 years, we've had 617 fellows work across 289 partner organizations on various projects closely linked to United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. The fellowship is a 10-month in-person volunteer service program in India between the months September and June. Fellows work on projects aligned to United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. Fellows, along with the host organization, define project scope for the fellowship to serve the communities on ground. The program brings together both Indians and Americans to foster meaningful connections. Through a matching process, shortlisted candidates are matched with grassroots NGO in the development sector to accelerate impact in India. The thematic areas of the projects that the fellows work on have expanded from disaster relief in 2001 to different areas that include education, public health, livelihoods, climate justice and environment protection, and many more. BIF is a fully funded program that covers benefits such as professional development grants to mentoring programs through senior fellows who are seasoned social sector professionals with 10 plus years of experience in their domain. There's also ongoing mentorship program with alumni. Besides that, there are multiple networking and career conversations with alumni from the fellowship. As you can see, the fellowship also covers visa and travel expenses, health insurance and counseling, language training, and professional development grants for the fellows. Our application for 2026-27 cohort is live now. Here's the eligibility criteria. Applicants must fulfill the following criteria. Applicants must be either a US citizen, permanent resident, or an Indian citizen. Applicants need to be between ages 21 and 35 years. They need to have completed a bachelor's or an undergraduate degree by the time they apply for the fellowship. Applicants need to exhibit a willingness to learn from host communities and have commitment to positive and sustainable change and US India bridge building. Here's an overview of the fellowship selection process and the structure. The selection process consists of two main stages, the application round and the matching round. In the application stage, you will submit written essays and participate in an interview if shortlisted. In your essays, we look for your motivation, especially why this fellowship, why you, and why now. Candidates who advance from the essay review will be invited to the interview round. Those who successfully complete the interview stage move on to the matching round. This step connects shortlisted candidates with potential host organizations. During this phase, you may engage with up to 3 organizations to explore alignment and fit. Once you receive and accept a match with a host organization, you officially become a fellow. Training then begins with a remote pre-orientation, followed by an in-person orientation program in India. Besides that, you receive ongoing mentorship from your program point of contact, your senior fellow who will be a domain expert, and alumni part of the cohort. The fellowship is also an avenue for you to explore the programs that AIF runs in India and the larger development sector. The fellowship lasts for 10 months, beginning with an in-person orientation, as mentioned earlier, in India in the month of September. After orientation, you will move to your host organization and complete the remainder of your fellowship there. We reconvene at the midpoint in January to share learnings and reflections on the journey ahead. The fellowship concludes with a final public seminar in June, where you will present the work you accomplished during your fellowship. Sharing an overview of 2022-23 Banyan Impact Fellowship ALM, Erin's fellowship project, to give you a sense of what the fellowship projects can potentially look like. Erin served in Jaipur, Rajasthan, with an organization called EcoRap. During her fellowship, she worked with rural women in the community in recycling waste materials to build products and ensure sustainable means of livelihood through micro-enterprise opportunities. Here is a testimonial from Erin. Erin continues to build and oversee EcoRap's Bayali initiative as a creative director, and she leads the work of creative direction and brand identity with EcoRap. I'll leave this slide up for a few seconds so everyone has a chance to read Erin's testimonial. Similar to Erin's journey, nearly 67% of Banyan Impact Fellowship alumni who graduate from the fellowship stay in the social impact space. Our alumni have a wide range of professional career paths, including investment partners, healthcare professionals, professors, founders, scientists, diplomats, education consultants, lawyers, etc. Here are a couple of them: Monica Doshi, who currently works as assistant professor; Christopher Torillo, who has co-founded MEDA and aspires to reach 1 million youth to make them job ready in India. Now, we are moving to the much anticipated part of the information session, hearing from our fellowship alumnus Michael about his fellowship journey. Michael, why don't you start by sharing a little bit about your placement city, your host organization, and a brief overview of the work that you did during your fellowship?
Sure. Thank you, Hari. And I'd like to thank everybody who's joining today, wherever you might be, and the entire AIF BIF team for hosting this great information session. I was placed at the Center for Environment Education, or CEE, in the climate change group. The Center for Environment Education is headquartered in Ahmedabad, in Gujarat, India, and I was placed in Ahmedabad for my host city. My work was mostly around rural climate resilience, so working with farmers and other rural people to prepare for coming climate change. And this involved anything from land and irrigation amendments to value chain optimization and market linkage connections.
Thank you so much for that, Michael. As we continue asking you more questions, I just have a quick, announcement for the people that are viewing us. I encourage everyone on the call to drop their questions in the comment section, and we'll address them towards the end. Michael, coming back to you, thank you so much for sharing that. Could you talk to us a little bit about, your selection process and how that happened, especially sharing details about, the matching process?
Sure. When I applied to the Banyan Impact Fellowship, I really had not much of an idea of what it was about, but through research on the website and through the fellowship blog, which is a fantastic resource for anybody interested in both the fellowship and generally in the development sector in India, I really came to know a lot and appreciate the fellowship, which was helpful for writing the personal statements in the application. So I sent through my personal statements in my application. They were really creative prompts to write about. I believe one was about where would you live and in which time period would you live if you could choose somewhere else. And that was just so exciting to kind of really get creative with writing and show who I am through that. And then once I went through my interview process with the Banyan Impact Fellowship team, I was then moved on to host organization matching, pardon. And through that, I was able to kind of submit job applications, how you normally would, to 3 different host organizations that interested me. I was coming from political ecology and environment and development background, so I was really interested in anything that had to do with environment, climate change, especially with kind of social inclusion and development. And so I chose to focus on livelihoods and environment placements. And that led me to the Center for Environment Education. And it was just the perfect match. The fellowship really helps to align your interests with the needs of each host organization. And you can be really confident going into that host organization that you'll be able to contribute something, but also that you'll be able to learn a lot.
Great. Thank you so much for sharing that, Michael. Just curious to sort of, understand a little bit more about how you worked with your host organization initially to scope your work, especially, given things could change from the project proposal stage to when you're on ground. Could you talk to us a little bit about that process?
Sure. When you start the fellowship, you really hit the ground running. Obviously, when you go into a host organization, they've already got projects going on, they've already got work going on. So you really have to slot in to the work that they're doing and figure out kind of while you're doing it how you're going to make an impact. That was actually a really helpful way to enter into the fellowship because it gave me some great skills and taught me about the initiative needed for really any development work, right? It's super fast paced and you've got to be able to keep up. So I worked with my supervisor directly, but then also with other heads of departments and colleagues at the Center for Environment Education. Specifically, I worked a lot with the Rural Program Group to scope my project because the climate change group had mostly been doing climate change education with big names like the UN and GIZ. So it was really pretty new to do a hands-on, on-the-ground climate resilience project for the department. And it was a lot of collaboration. It was a lot of learning from what other fellows were doing. It's really helpful to have your cohort and ask, hey, I'm confused about this. Either how does this work in India, or how are you formatting your proposal, or just kind of getting that information from both your colleagues within the host organization and then also within your fellowship cohort.
Great. That's amazing to know how you sort of leveraged, your peers to sort of, understand the context better besides your host organization. Michael, curious to sort of understand key highlights from your fellowship. Also, as you share your highlights, we're sort of curious to understand more about the pictures on screen. So if you could walk us through, what those pictures mean to you and when they were taken, it'll be amazing.
So definitely the key highlight or highlights from my fellowship was the field work that I was able to undertake as part of my project. Obviously, with rural climate resilience, there's desk work to be done, but a lot of it is on the ground with the communities you're working with. I really appreciate it because I value participation in development and community-led development. And through talking to people on the ground, farmers, rural people, women's self-help groups, and local authority, for example, as well, like farmer producer organization leadership, or even the National Bank for Agriculture and Rural Development leadership. It was really great to get input into a project where really I was an outsider, right? And you create bonds with people who you're learning about their circumstances, their needs, their triumphs, especially through their livelihoods, and being able to understand one, why you're different, but also two, more importantly, what brings you together. Obviously, I'm being from Kansas. Gujarat, rural Gujarat is a very different place, but I was always able to find common ground with people and really collaborate in the project. It wasn't me working on this project alone. It was so many farmers and rural people and colleagues at the Center for Education that were really supportive in this work. It's also just a really fun experience. I remember one time, if you see in that top right photo, I was at a farm and they offered to let me ride one of their horses, which was just a great time. That day as well, they brought snacks from their own farm, like dates, mangoes. It was great. And then you can also see some of that field work on the bottom right. That was in Maharashtra, where we were working with a farmer producer organization. And they were touring us around one of their labs to create biofertilizer and biopesticides. And then the other two on the top left and center, that's me working with farmers and farmer producer organizations in rural Gujarat, taking notes, learning about their challenges and triumphs, and really informing the project so that it could be as sustainable and participatory as possible.
Great. Thank you so much. I travel to India every now and then for, Banyan Impact Fellowship events. And every time I speak to a fellow and they share their fellowship experience, it sort of re-energizes us on the purpose of why we do what we do. So thank you so much for sharing what these pictures mean to you. So Michael, we spoke about your fellowship highlight and what these pictures mean to you. Curious to sort of understand, any challenges that you faced during the fellowship that you can share with us.
Mm-hmm. I will say the fellowship is extremely challenging, right? You're not going because you want a fun year in India. You're going because you want to be challenged and you want to learn and you want to grow. At the end of the day, it's leadership development, and you will develop your leadership, right? So in my personal circumstance, working on proposals for this project, specifically the grant proposal. It was a giant budget, and I, along with my supervisor, were managing that budget, which was so challenging for someone who didn't have development management experience or any kind of like financial reporting or financial experience. So I made friends with an old enemy, being Excel, and learned how to model budgets and do cash flows, and it really prepared me for the technical aspects of development work, where you've got to think critically about what the budget will be, employ like really almost accounting skills and financial skills in the practical aspects of the work, right? And then the other part of it that challenged me was the scientific aspect. I came from more of a social sciences and humanities background, and learning the science of regenerative agriculture, or how climate change will affect irrigation and soil health in the near and long-term future was really challenging, but it was an extremely fun challenge as well, right? So it actually inspired me to go on and do a Master's of Science in Climate Change. And I learned all about the applied sciences during that master's, but I gained a really valuable foundation during the fellowship, where I was introduced to math, science, and this budget modeling, kind of this practical aspect of development management and project coordination.
Brilliant. I know, Michael, you spoke a little bit about how the fellowship helped you build technical skills, and like you rightly put it, pushing yourself out of your comfort zone, and leading by serving and learning. It was beautiful to hear that. Could you talk to us a little bit about, your experience living in India, and maybe share a couple of events or core memories that you have from living in India? And I know I'm asking this because for a lot of people that are thinking of applying to the fellowship, probably this is the first time that they plan to visit India or will be visiting India. So they'd be sort of wanting to learn more about what it means to live in India and volunteer there.
Sure. So before the fellowship, I had actually lived in India previously. I had lived in North India, in just outside of Delhi, really. And so I kind of thought that I was going into something that was not necessarily new, something that I'd be extremely comfortable in. And then I got my placement city, which was Ahmedabad in India. And to be fair, I spent a lot of time out of Ahmedabad doing field work in Gujarat, Maharashtra, and then a little bit in Uttarakhand as well, which was lovely. But Gujarat was a completely different experience from what I had experienced outside of Delhi, right, in Uttar Pradesh. But really, it was just the most hospitable experience. And I think that it's important to think about the life that you'll have outside of the fellowship work, right? Because everybody wants to make an impact and will make an impact, and is there to serve, learn, and lead, as the fellowship emphasizes. But also, you have a life outside of that work, and I really appreciate the ability you have to kind of implant yourself into the community, and learn about life in India outside of the fellowship. For example, when I arrived in Ahmedabad first, it was around Navratri, which is a big holiday in North India, sometimes in Gujarat and Bengal specifically, where it's a celebration of the goddess Durga, and it really is the start of a lot of succession of other festivals. And they have Garba, which is specific to Gujarat. It's a dance where communities come together and you dance in a circle around a small temple. And it is the most fun thing that I've ever experienced. And being in Gujarat for that was just great. And then you meet people from all over, and you really feel like it's a community event, right? And then in other aspects, I just meet people from community, friends, and you go out for dinner, or you hang out at someone's house. It's really comparable to the life I was living before the fellowship, right? You meet up with friends and have fun. You experience new experiences. It's just that you're in this new culture, and there's definitely some getting used to it, but then also it's so special what can come from that.
Great. Yeah. Thank you so much for sharing that. I was also curious to hear, if you had time to travel within India during your fellowship, because a lot of, folks that apply are curious to learn more about that. So if you could, tell us a little bit about if you were able to travel, if so, any travel memories that you have. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Sure. Yeah, I was able to travel quite a bit, both for purposes of the fellowship, but then also just for leisure. So for the fellowship, I traveled for midpoint to Uttarakhand. And there we did our midpoint conference in this lovely venue, and we're able to do some hiking and learn about Uttarakhand more. I also went to Vishakhapatnam for an AIF event, and it was beautiful to see the sea and see a new part of India that I hadn't seen before, which was Andhra Pradesh. And then as well, you're in Delhi a lot for both the orientation and endpoint conferences. So I got to see a good bit of Delhi and meet a bunch of people who I knew from living there previously, right, which was great. And then as far as travel for leisure, I was able to go to Meghalaya in the northeast. And also I took my mom to Delhi, and then we went to Kerala together and I experienced Kerala for the first time there. And I was really able to open my mind through travel and see how other parts of India are. And also it was funny because wherever I went, if I was somewhere rural, I was kind of observing very closely and thinking about, oh, how is this different or the same to Gujarat? What kind of crops are they growing here? And it was really funny to see how kind of the fellowship was already influencing my pattern of thought, just just going to other places in India at that point.
That's so brilliant to hear. And you've done a wide expanse of travel between the west and east, like Gujarat to Meghalaya, and then even the south, Kerala and Andhra Pradesh. That's
Mhm.
wonderful to hear. In fact, you've traveled a lot more than most of us have. So wonderful to hear that. Could you, talk to us a little bit about how was it coping, in a different country, culture, and talk to us a little bit about how you did that.
Sure, yeah. So when I got to Gujarat, it was definitely a new culture for me, and a new language, right? But the Banyan Impact Fellowship provides for some language classes in your host location. I know a few other people who are based in Gujarat. They learned Hindi, but because I already spoke Hindi, I opted to learn Gujarati. There's a lot of support for that. And I really felt more confident in my Gujarati after those language classes. And then obviously it just improved with time as I was out in the field. So in terms of language, there's really nothing to fear, and it's something you'll pick up as part of the fellowship, and you can either spend more or less time on it depending on your needs and your motivation. Culturally, there again, when you're going anywhere far away, it's pretty challenging to fit in, but it's really kind of mind opening to go to new places in India, especially rural India. I found just fascinating and enlightening, and seeing how people live and how welcoming people are. It definitely kind of tones down that challenge, right? I think wherever you go in India, people are going to be hospitable. I think that's something that India and the US share in a lot, actually. But I kind of coped with some culture shock by staying in close touch with friends back in the US and where I had been in the UK, and also with other fellows, right? That's also, again, just a great network that you have. And then also with just alumni as well. Alumni are always there to help. And speaking with them about kind of how to cope was really great. So definitely, there's room to build on your own interests and do what you love. So I did a lot of crafts when I was in Gujarat, right? If I ever felt homesick, or I just went out and met up with friends, made new friends, and you really kind of embed yourself into the culture of the area, which is a great part about the Banyan Impact Fellowship.
Perfect. Thank you so much for sharing that. I just had a couple of follow-up questions there. In terms of you spoke a little bit about this, but language support, was there any support that was provided by the fellowship team, and how helpful was that? And two, how did you find your community initially, especially living in US and sort of moving to Ahmedabad? How did you find your community within the space that you were located in?
Sure. So the language support, again, the Banyan Impact Fellowship provides funding and to some extent organization of language classes for fellows. And so I was connected to a Gujarati language instructor in Ahmedabad, and I was able to meet with her in person. Sometimes they'll connect you with an online teacher too, if you prefer that. But you really get to kind of feed that back to the fellowship team, and they'll do everything they can to make it a fulfilling language learning opportunity. But I was placed with a fantastic language instructor in Ahmedabad who was really understanding and patient with my Gujarati, and would even kind of organize these culturally enriching experiences in regard to our language class, where I wasn't only learning the language, but also kind of learning about Gujarat itself, which was a really fantastic way to just get more knowledge while I was working with the Center for Environment Education. I remember my coordination of language classes kind of ended up that I was doing language classes from 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. On a few weekdays. And so the Center for Environment Education, my supervisor, she was very kind and patient working with me on that and letting me take that time to go to the language lessons, which in the end really benefited all of us because I was much more useful in the field when I could communicate, right? And then as far as how did I find my community? So it's a big question because there's a lot of communities that I was able to interact with and become a part of really during the fellowship. Number one, my colleagues at the Center for Environment Education, my other fellows, that was pretty easy because you're there at the office with them or out in the field with them, and you really get to know them fondly, right? But then also, I myself was really interested in kind of the local folk religion and culture. So there was just a small temple across from the Center for Environment Education that I visited, and I made it quite a habit to go. And eventually, they would welcome me with open arms. We were making dinner together at the temple. They would take me to their farms just outside of Ahmedabad, so I was able to see more rural life outside of what I was doing with the fellowship. And I made great friends who I still talk to. I mean, honestly, pretty much every day today too, right? So it's something that comes. It's something that doesn't come without any effort or automatically. But when you seek that out, again, India is such a hospitable place that people will want to bring you into their communities and show you their lives and share kind of that joy with you. So.
Thank you, Michael. That was wonderful to hear. We have a couple of questions from the audience. I'm going to be reading them out. A quick instruction for people that watching us live now. If you have any questions, please keep them coming in. The first question, Michael, is after the Banyan Impact Fellowship experience. They are curious to understand how that shaped, the work that you do now, and if you can elaborate on how, that'd be great.
Yeah. So I've just completed really my Master's of Science in Climate Change, Environment Science, and Policy, and I was focusing on applied climate science, so data analysis, climate modeling, and like I said earlier, that was really inspired by my work with the Center for Environment Education and the fact that I really wanted to commit myself to this interdisciplinary approach to development work, right? So I developed my skills and knowledge in the science side of climate change and environmental science, but really also kind of what made made me successful with this master's was also combining that social sciences and humanities approach, which kind of made my dissertation and my other coursework that much more special. A lot of my coursework was actually inspired by my experiences as a Banyan Impact Fellowship and with the Center for Environment Education. So now I'm working on some personal projects while I wait for graduation, which is in the coming week, and looking for a job at the intersection of climate change, the environment, and international development, which is a really exciting area. So.
Thank you for that, Michael. We have a question from Ariel. Thank you so much, Ariel, for joining. So, Michael, in what ways did you grow as a leader throughout the fellowship? Also, what did collaboration, trust building, and community engagement look like for you throughout the fellowship?
I grew as a leader in a lot of ways. Obviously, we've talked about my skills and kind of that project management and coordination aspect, but also in the technical work. But I think what allowed me to achieve those kind of upskilling achievements is that I kind of shed off the fear that I had before, or the apprehension that I had before about really giving my all and committing to things that were not necessarily in my wheelhouse of skills, right? So now I look back and I think I was kind of really fearful to step into this role at Center for Environment Education as a fellow and take a lot of responsibility for the project. But looking back, I'm really proud that I did do that, because even though it was scary and challenging at times, I have become a better leader because I can kind of swallow my fear and go ahead and get the job done. And I really know now that I can do anything I put my mind to. And that is what the fellowship really developed in me, which I'm so grateful for. The collaboration, trust building, and community engagement looked like just having conversations initially with people, right? Whether that was with colleagues or with rural stakeholders or funders or technical stakeholders. I think this fellowship really rightly emphasizes the importance of networks and engaging with people on a personal level so that we can get impact done, right? So those small initial conversations and little efforts, but fun efforts towards networking and building trust and community were really important. And then later that looked like really complex collaboration that everybody was excited for and believed in too, right? Because we knew each other and trusted each other.
Great. Thank you so much for sharing that. I think Lillian's question is quite straightforward. Following the initial deadline, what is the timeline for selection process? So Lillian, February is when we review applications. If you're shortlisted, you'd be called for an interview in March, and April is when your matching will happen. So broadly, those are the timelines. The shortlisted candidates will receive a detailed email, with more details on that. So I think that sums up the questions that we have. Thank you everyone for joining us. As mentioned earlier, our application is live on our website. Please do, submit your applications before January 30th deadline. Thank you so much, Michael, for patiently answering all the questions and wonderfully, encapsulating your 10-month fellowship experience over the last 30 minutes. It was wonderful to hear your reflections and thoughts.
Thank you, Hari. And thank you, everybody, for joining.
Yeah, great. As we close, please do stay in touch. And if you have any questions, do write to me. You see my email ID on the screen. So please do, write to me with any application portal specific questions or application questions that you have. Thank you so much, everyone.